I'm pretty sure. I think we all would agree that it's pretty much set. I don't think Montreal is going to blow this. I think they're going to end up with the 8 seed.
Yeah.
Looking ahead before we get to the rest of the playoffs and everything, no, I'm putting him on the spot, by the way, because he asked me what we wanted to talk about, and this was not on the subject list. Um, do you think this is my hypothetical, imaginary conspiracy theory
Mm-hmm.
that if Montreal can somehow ride out one more year with Monty, and he has one more year on his contract, I
Right.
think we kind of know he's not bringing them to a Stanley Cup. But if they could ride that out, do they have the assets to offer sheet Spencer Knight away from the Blackhawks?
Ooh.
Yeah.
Oh, so okay, so that gets interesting because does Spencer Knight want to be with Chicago? It just depends because,
Yeah, that's my point.
you
Right.
know, um, listen, and I will say because I have kind of followed the Spencer Knight after the trade. I think he's looked great considering what's around him. I think he's been done
Yeah.
pretty solid.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's so the one thing is right. You got Dobish, who's the backup currently with the Habs, but then you also have Fowler that's currently playing for Boston College, the
Okay.
BC Eagles, who's a very high prospect, the best goalie in NCAA, I think, right now statistically, and he's looked at as like a franchise goaltender. So we all know with goalies, it can be a little bit weird. Sometimes they can go, a little bit earlier in the developmental path where they'll get in the NHL, but sometimes it takes a couple seasons, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it would be an interesting conversation. I do agree. Montembeault to me, I think, is like an average starter, right? Like he'll have some really good games, and then he'll have some games like, what the hell was that?
Right.
And that's kind of the blessing and the curse with Montembeault. He can rob you a few games and really just
Yep.
carry you, but then other games it's like, do we have a shooter tutor in net? Like what's going on here? So it's to me. I don't think that happens because of the goaltenders they have in the system. I think they really believe in Fowler. But do I think Spencer Knight with the Habs and with all the prospects they have would look really good? I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I do think that would be kind of an interesting thing, personally.
Well, and I guess it also might depend on how far along Montreal's development becomes, and if Florida, Tampa are still in the mix, how much longer is Ovechkin? Montreal might see a window of opportunity
Mm-hmm.
where if they could pick up Spencer Knight, maybe they make the move Fowler for Knight because maybe they feel like they're ready now and Fowler would be ready in 3 or 4 years. And
Right.
if you put Spencer Knight on a team, we've seen it with the Panthers. You've seen his numbers with the Panthers. Put him with a really good team.
Mm-hmm.
He can. I think he's a guy that could eventually win a cup for a team.
I do. I think he's got the pedigree, right? I think a guy
Yeah.
like Spencer Knight's had the pedigree. That's why a couple of years ago, or a year ago, when he down with Charlotte or wherever it was, Chicago, wherever who the AHL affiliate that was at the
Yeah,
time.
yeah, the
We
checkers. Yeah,
the Checkers. We were kind of having that conversation because I do believe in Knight as a goaltender. I think sometimes teams push goalies up, but I'm not really blaming Florida on that. I think Bobrovsky was kind of pushed by Knight at one point, but then Bobrovsky kind of turned his career around, right? He
yeah,
kind of found his game again. So it makes sense what like you're going to go with Bob, and you're not going to have two goalies with significant cap hits on the book
right.
against your cap. But it's interesting. I think if you do move a goaltender, it would probably be Dobish instead of Fowler. But
Okay.
if they could kind of make that work somehow and get a guy like Knight, I think you would instantly improve that team in
Yeah,
Montreal. And I think like with you have Demidov who's going to be coming over, I believe next season. You have more prospects within the system. I mean, when you kind of really go into what the Habs have in their system, and I've spoken about this for the last season or two, the Canadiens are going to be one of these teams that will be really damn good for like probably 5 to 8, maybe plus years in a
yeah,
row. Maybe I'm not saying perennial cup contender, but a very good playoff team, and then with some cup window in there.
yeah.
Because I mean, I do like what they have with Suzuki and Caulfield and some of we've seen what Hudson's been able to do. Not to ramble, I like what they have there. I just think of minor pieces. Like I think a guy like Knight would be brilliant because he has the NHL experience and he has shown the success and the capability to be a number one. It's just, I think, kind of making it make sense for the Blackhawks to take that deal. You know?
Yeah. They're going to